This is the 2019 Toyota Innova G. It's a family hauler. It has a diesel engine and it sells for 1.5 million pesos. Is it worth the price? Let's find out. This second generation Innova looks sharper than the previous model. The previous model looked more rounded. This one looks more angular. The hood looks longer. The headlights look more aggressive. They have straight cuts and they're angled downwards towards the grille. The new grille is bigger and it's more aggressive looking. It's a pretty angry looking family hauler. The sides look pretty simple. There are no fender bulges, no swooping lines, no claddings. Just one straight line that runs from the headlights to the taillights. Because of the longer hood and the slightly sloping roof, it looks more streamlined than the previous model. The rear end also looks less rounded. The taillights have hooks on them, and they're also pretty angular. For a van, I think the Innova looks pretty decent. It has a bit of aggression to it, but not so much that it will still appeal to more conservative tastes. This is the G variant, which is the middle range variant. The base model is the J. The V sells for around 1.67 million. And there's also the Touring Sport variant, which I'll be reviewing later. The dashboard looks very curvy. It has several layers of curves that warp around the instrument cluster. It looks almost organic. It's a very eye-catching design. Because the second gen Innova is longer than the previous model, you get slightly more interior space, especially in the legroom department. Okay, the steering wheel is leather covered. It has a wood accent on it, and this looks like aluminum, but it is plastic. The seats are fabric. This is some sort of felt material. Feels like velour, and it's also padded. There is one cup holder over here, and one compartment over here that can be used as a cup holder. Over here are your buttons for the modes. And then you have what looks like an 8-inch infotainment screen. Like with a lot of Toyota models here in the Philippines, it looks aftermarket. It's not integrated into the bezel. It has single zone climate control. It has fake wood accents. The dashboard looks pretty good. Of course, you have power windows, power side mirrors, power folding side mirrors. Okay, so I'm now sitting at the second row. Headroom seems to be a little bit limited. You have foldable tables with one cup holder each. $10 kilograms max. Over here are your aircon controls, aircon vents. There's the center armrest with cup holders. Over here is an aux jack. and a 12-volt outlet.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm now sitting at the third row. Knee room is limited, but I have decent headroom. Also, the seats can be reclined. There are aircon vents for the third row passengers, but no aircon controls. One cup holder over here, and another one over there. The Innova is powered by the same 2.8-liter engine that powers the 4x4 Fortuner. It produces 171 horsepower and 360 Newton meters of torque. It's a significant upgrade from the last generation, which only produced around 100 horsepower and 260 Newton meters of torque. Like the previous model, this is also a body-on-frame design, and it's rear-wheel drive. It has independent suspension at the front and a solid rear axle at the back. As expected, the Innova had a bit of body roll in this tight slalom course. It is not excessive for a van, but it's there. It rides more like a truck than a crossover. The suspension is designed more for load carrying than for comfort. It may have the same engine as the Fortuner, but it produces significantly less torque. It's stored by about 90 Newton meters. Overall, it's a pretty decent ride. Power was sufficient, the ride quality was just decent, and sound insulation was okay. I've noticed that Toyota doesn't include backup cameras on almost all of their local vehicles, and I'm not just talking about base and mid-range models. Even the top spec Fortuner and the Land Cruiser don't have backup cameras. For vehicles that sell at those prices, it's almost unthinkable why they would omit backup cameras, which are basic features in even some entry-level cars now. I mean, you could add an aftermarket backup camera later on, but it won't have the active guidelines that you would get on a native backup camera system. The Innova G just encroaches on the pricing of the base model Fortuner. It sells for 1.5 million. Just add 80,000 and you can get a manual Fortuner. You'll have to add 170k though to get the automatic. If you go for the Fortuner, you get more ground clearance and that macho feeling that you get from driving an SUV. But in terms of interior space and features, you'll be getting more from this G-Spec Innova than the base model Fortuner. The Innova G is more expensive though than the Montero GLS. The Montero has more features, and I think it looks better. I think the Innova G is a decent vehicle. I specifically like the interior, but its pricing puts it in a position where it'll be competing against mid-sized diesel SUVs, which have the advantage when it comes to practicality, ruggedness, and aesthetics. I think the Innova E is where the sweet spot is at. At 1.3 million, it is just slightly more expensive than the Toyota Rush, but still a lot cheaper than most diesel SUVs.